right. So in 2016, you started the Nathan Raich Foundation. And what inspired you to do so?
Well, great question.
Thank you.
Yep. Brooke thought of that one. Family first. And the foundation has to have a really solid meaning behind it. And it was our family. My nephew had a little baby boy. And at the time of birth, I was having a heart defect and had to have open heart surgery. And at that time, you know, I couldn't even imagine. I think he was 20. My nephew was 21, 20 in that range. And having to, and he lived out of state. He lived in North Dakota. He had to come down to Minnesota to Children's, was the best of the best. And at that point was living at the Ronald McDonald House with friends and family with his wife. And I couldn't imagine being that young and being in that position. And after seeing my, I guess, great nephew, Benjamin is his name, and you know, obviously he survived and everything. And he's had 2 or 3 open heart surgeries, and they obviously try to go through the veins in the legs and stuff now. And but just such a little baby, you know. And over the time and being at the hospital, you notice like these families, they need to have resources. They need to have the Ronald McDonald House, and that's why the first few years we donated directly to the Ronald McDonald House. Not just we took care of our nephew, obviously, but those other families, they needed help. And it's just so impactful to see they have meals every day, a place to stay while their child's being taken care of. And it's the last thing they should have to worry about is food. Yeah. You know? So it was,
I can't hardly think about how to feed myself most nights. You know, you come home, let alone when you're going through a crisis.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's a long story. That's kind of how it all began, you know, and how to give back.
That's awesome.
So the mission is to help support families who have young children with health.
That's how it started. Yeah.
Problems. Yep.
Yeah, it really did.
Yeah. And so is that like, would you say that that is like the primary mission, or do you have like, can you share with us your mission statement?
Well, you know, it's all for the kids. I always say that. And open up your checkbooks. I used to say nobody has checkbooks anymore, but the Venmo.
Your Venmo, yeah.
Yeah, right. But no, it's really about the children, and that's what's relatable. As I've gotten older, my friends have gotten older, their families, they're growing, they've got kids, and it's something that you can really relate. And it's a great foundation to build off of.
Yeah.
So explain to us, if anyone out there wants to start a foundation.
Sure.
What was the exact first step? What did you do? How did it go, like start to finish on where you are now today?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, you really want to...
Brooke again.
Yeah, Brooke, thank you for thinking that one. Yeah. You know, it's like you need to have passion behind it, right? And to create something that won't fizzle out, and to dream big and to push forward with whatever your plan and goals are. So step one was to have, what were you going to support? So when creating a 503c, you have to select, is it for youth sports, science, engineering, or are you going to be a pass-through? Where I always thought, well, that means I can go somewhat rogue and donate to this charity or that charity and kind of play the field as the market changes and the need changes.
Yeah.
You know, so we are pass-through, so we can donate to another charity or an individual. So
how much time would you say it takes up of your life, because you are the, you know, big guy over there at Refine Lending.
Oh, yeah.
And so you're running a crew over there, and then you have this foundation. So what would you say, you know, I know the golf scramble, that's like a really big deal, but how much of the time does that take, and how do you manage it all?
Another good question, Brooke. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, it's a team effort. There's a lot of human hours behind the scenes. It's weeks to prepare something that big, and to actually showcase it correctly, and actually be like proud when it's all said and done. Like, wow, we did that, you know? So I'd have to say a few weeks to really prep, but it all depends on your referral partners and the families that are sponsoring it, because it's a community event. It's the community's money, and we're the pass-through.
So going back to starting it and then that time piece, how long would you say it took you from, you know, this crisis with your great nephew to then, you know, deciding that this was a solution for you and your family, how you could help and how the community could help, to then having like your first charity event? So what's the timeline of that?
He was one when we had our first charity event, and we It was all about him. We had a video from him, my nephew and his wife and the family. It was just so heart touching. And that's what you're trying to do is relate to that need when you're speaking in front of a group. And at the first foundation charity event, we had 114 golfers. And this year we had 144 golfers and a waiting list. And it's just so impactful to see that your mission is making a difference and people want to be part of it. So,
and do you do different families every single year, or do you try to do different, like, yes, the Children's Minnesota or St. Jude's, or is it all maybe something to deal with like Children's Hearts or?
Yeah. That's a good question too, Brooke. Yeah. So again, we did Children's Minnesota, the Ronald McDonald House for 3 years. This last year we did the Real Hope Project, which is about child adoption. You're not funding the adoption, you're funding the path to get the kids adopted. And it's an amazing charity that we are so blessed to be able to provide funds to.
Sorry.
No, I just think that that's really awesome because I knew that you guys were sponsoring the Real Hope because All American Title was a sponsor of the golf tournament and everything. But so it's kind of all coming together for me. So it's not just about health care for kids, you know, and their families. It's about anything that can help kids thrive and be better.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So because running Refined Lending, you know, and our homes, being a pillar in the real estate community, especially in, you know, the northern suburbs, I would say.
Yeah.
Blaine isn't that far north, but have you thought about like homelessness in children? Like, has that been something that you guys have considered?
Yeah. And some of those, you know, I think Julie Jepson actually has a really great foundation that she's part of. And I believe it's Stepping Stones. And that's something to help people that are homeless to get into housing. And so that's like, all right, well, that's adults, right? Now but they start at 16, 17, 18. And, you know, so you have that age bracket that is really left out there. They're not toddlers. They're not, you know what I mean? They're almost adults. And that age bracket needs help. So that's another great foundation charity that we'll be sponsoring here shortly.
Yeah, and we'll add that to our show notes too, the information about that charity and all the charities that we've discussed in this today. Yeah,
absolutely. One thing, so Refined Lending on that side also donates every month as a company versus the foundation. It's because our employees really want to give back as well, and the clients that we service, they want to be a part of it. So it's snowballing in the right direction.
Yeah.
So.
What was the biggest risk that you felt like you've took while doing this? Because it's a big deal. It's a lot of work. It's your name, right? It's not called Children's Foundation or whatnot, right? It's the Nathan Raich. So what was the biggest risk you took?
Risk. You know what is to make sure that I was able to connect on those levels with people. So you rent out a golf course and you put a lot of expenses up front. And you plan for all these meals. If nobody came, I guess that would be the biggest risk, you know?
Yeah.
You don't want to be teeing off by yourself, you know? But we just have a great community, honestly. And you guys, thank you so much for, you know, obviously sponsoring the foundation as well.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, when you start a foundation, is it kind of like starting a business? Like, do you have to come up with a business plan or like a foundation plan?
You can, and that's a really good question because our foundation is not a nonprofit, but we're not the ones actually doing the charitable work. We're raising funds for those charities, so we're a pass-through. But if you want to dive in and be a true charity and actually be spending the funds, and you're eligible for government grants and go through those type of steps, you know that's all hands in. Everyone's getting dirty there, you know.
And this may sound like a dumb question, but does foundation in itself mean that you're not the charity, that you are this pass-through? Or
it does not. No.
Okay.
We could definitely do it.
Okay. I just wasn't sure because it kind of makes sense, like foundation, like you're raising money to pass on.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Did you ever see yourself being here or this like where it is now today? I mean, it's been 6 years, 5 years?
5 years. So no, we didn't. It's you know, that's something too that I wanted to pass through over to my kids too, and so we'll be changing the name just to Raich Family Foundation shortly.
Awesome.
That was Trisha's idea, by the way. I didn't, everything's her idea, by the way.
So we should have had her on this
Yes.
podcast.
Yeah. Well, let me call her.
Yeah. So where do you see it going in the next 5 years? What's the next step or what's the next level that you want to get to with this, right? Because you've made such an impact in the community. And I always feel like when you have, you're like on the edge of where to go. What's the next big step? So where do you see this going in the next 5 years besides the name change?
Well, yeah. I think I love the game Monopoly. I've always been involved with money, with the bank and building and all that stuff. I'm good at that. I'm good at building trust and direction of charity funds. And I think that as we grow, we can help more families. It really comes down to the kids, helping them on an individual basis, or it's amazing what you can accomplish when we can continue to grow our circle of influence, and more funds, more problem solved. Really, that's where we're going. I'm not sure if we'll ever do a gala or anything like that. If Trish is involved, it probably will be going that direction. So
awesome. And where can people, if they want to donate, where can they go?
NathanRaichFoundation.com. And they can go online and obviously make a pledge or a donation at any time.
Awesome. Well, it's in your, like you said, you're the game of Monopoly. You got a lot of things going on, right? You're the bank, you're the builder, all these things. That's actually true of you. How does the foundation play into your building company?
That's a really good.
Does it at all? Or
we help families with the building company. They also want references when you're doing these higher end homes. They want to know who they're working with.
Absolutely.
A teamwork building these beautiful, gorgeous houses. And boy, it gives us a leg up over other builders that aren't in the community. It doesn't mean they're not a good builder. It just means they're not out there and getting the references that easy, so it helps.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like, home is where the heart is. Like, your heart and soul is into this. Your heart and soul is into the foundation, and you want to do business with somebody whose heart and soul is also in it.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's really relatable, especially with kids, and they're building these 5 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms. That means they have kids, you know, or plan to have a lot of kids,
Yeah.
So they feed off each other for sure.
Definitely.
Well, thank you, Nate, for being here today.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, for sure.
Yeah, this has been awesome.